One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We are large and in charge. Back inside of our studio, we got the whole crew here. We're back to Sweetie and Robert. We got it all sewn up, as well as our amazing guest.
Absolutely. Before we get to the most amazing things that we have for you today, I want to remind you to text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 and support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign. We got to be there for each other, you guys. 818-698-1021. Text the word GIVE. A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away. Today, we welcome Janet Craig. Woo! Ah! Okay, Tony should have picked that. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Tony.
Where's that water gun?
She's an amazing woman with an amazing story. She's the writer, producer, and actor in an amazing, necessary film called Wake Up. And the reason why I say necessary, because the movie focuses on ending sex trafficking. Wow. That is a big project, and we are all here for it. Marla and I love tennis, and guess what? She has also been ranked or working on a ranking at one point, and we'll talk to her about this, as a professional tennis player hailing from Trinity University, where she played in college.
Trinity,
she's probably better than Marla.
But why didn't I meet you when my knees were new? That's all I'm trying to find out. I mean, why now? I'm confused.
We have a great one in store for you today. Sit back, relax, and just get ready to be not only entertained, but mostly
informed,
educated, and informed. We'll be right back with Janet Craig.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 to donate. A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
As Dave said before the break, we are super excited and glad to welcome you, Janet, to Mental Health Mondays.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Now,
and the topic, an important topic that you have taken the time through the course of years to develop a film. And so I just want to talk about how you got to Wake Up.
Well, I was telling you guys that you asked how many years it took to make Wake Up, and I said, well, I think maybe almost a decade.
Wow.
But I think that through my life, this story sort of got written. It's inspired by things that I experienced as a young person all the way through. I sometimes think the stories that we have are being written for us, and each of us has a unique voice in that. And so this is a story that's been with me for a really long time.
So we're going to actually peel back these layers. And so take us all the way back to the beginning. You said that you realized sort of retrospectively that this is something that your life has been building toward, it's sort of a life's work kind of thing, kind of feeling. But take us back to the specifics at the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say, in what way?
Yeah.
Because when you talk about sex trafficking, it even becomes more intriguing, like, what do you mean this is your life's work?
I wasn't trafficked.
Right, okay, so talk to us about that.
But I grew up with many people that I love that struggled with addiction. And by the grace of God, I didn't struggle with addiction. My nickname in college was Fish.
Wow.
So honestly, I just was protected from that. But so many people that I loved were struggling with all types of addiction. So sex, drugs, eating, all different things. And I think what happened for me is that it gave me a heart. for people that struggle. I saw hurting people, and I
Yeah.
think that in sex trafficking, it's hurting people. And it's multifaceted and multi-layered. You don't just start out born wanting to buy children for sex. And I think what people don't realize is that there's trauma involved. There's mental health issues that take place with trafficking that made this a story that I really understood from all different sides.
Now, is that, would you say mental health, the mental health aspect is because of the trauma, or is the mental health that causes someone to be sort of fall into this trap, so to speak?
I think both
Or
and.
both, yeah.
So trauma definitely plays a part. When people watch pornography, they're rewiring their brain. Pornography starts out, you may think it's not going to hurt anyone, but
Benign,
it's like heroin. It's an addictive drug, and you need a bigger and bigger hit. So we talked earlier a little bit about Jeffrey Dahmer as a person that was a serial killer, and he says that it was porn addiction that really escalated his going into that. And I think what happens is when these little kids right now, we got 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds on smartphones, right? And they have access to pornography at a very young age.
Yes.
Well, what's happening now, these kids are going to be watching this content, and what happens is their brains are rewired. And it just happens where it's addictive. So they watch it, and then they want a bigger and bigger hit. So you think about an 8-year-old now in 5 years, a teenager, who's been addicted to pornography for 5 years.
Wow.
And it's an escalating drug. So we're just going to see what's going to happen to our society if we don't make changes here.
Or maybe we see what's happening to our
Already.
society because of. So now, when you say escalating, are you saying in the sense of, you start watching things that you might seem like benign, but then after a while, that's not doing it for you, so it just gets worse and worse kind of thing?
Right. Well, I
Or are you
believe...
talking about time that you spend immersed?
So
both.
high-speed internet porn rewires your brain very differently from pornography that was when I grew up, it was the magazines.
Right.
So what's happening when we watch things, there's so much anxiety and depression now. People are on social media so much, and we find that the more that people are on content, you just find there's a low-grade anxiety. Well, think about pornography, right? So they're watching content, and then I don't believe any of it's benign, really.
Right.
Because when you're watching people in pornography, it's not really the way God designed it, is it? It's not this beautiful picture of a man and a woman having this bond, this uniting of two souls. It's a deepness because it's our bodies, and it says the two will become one. So we're really becoming very intimate in it.
Connected to.
It's so connecting, right? Sex is so connecting. It's such a gift. But if we see pornography, is that ever the way it is? Is this a beautiful example of how
No.
people, And so that's the thing, right? So you're watching. So 7-year-olds are watching this, thinking that's how they're supposed to treat their friends on the
Right.
playground. Okay, and then they're getting excited by it, and naturally so. And when I played professional sports, right? So when I was playing, what I learned is if you focus on something and you get excited, it'll go more into your muscle memory.
Yeah.
So when I hit a great shot, I tried to get really excited. If I hit a bad shot, I tried to stay mellow. Because so when you watch porn and you get excited,
Reinforcement.
reinforcement. And so what we're doing is we're watching it escalate in all different ways.
Man,
Wow, so it's
that's a load.
Yeah, and yeah, the load is even I'm still drawn to the connection for you of these addictive traits and behaviors that drove you to go deeper into the sex trafficking and the creation of Wake Up, which is just the fact that those two things came together for you to do this great work. That's amazing. So as we go forward, I want to continue to explore Janet's experience of how you are dealing with all sides of this issue.
Yeah, well, I think, all of us have experienced shame if we've lived any part of our life, right? There are things that we just wish we hadn't done. I know for me, there's many things
Right.
and what shame does is it traps us. So the way these kids are trapped is through shame. So if you grow up and, in my experiences, I would watch addicts hurting others and then be so remorseful, right? And feel terrible about themselves. And then that makes them want to use again. If you're
To mask that bad feeling.
if I feel bad, what do I do to make myself feel better? So it's eating, or it's watching porn,
Some
or it's
destructive behavior.
drinking, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, or even to escape, right? So what happened for me is I watched people that I love dearly hurting others and hurting themselves. And it gave me this compassion. And I'm a foster mom. My husband and I adopted one of our children through foster care, and they're the most exploited in America right now in trafficking, because what the trafficker looks for is the vulnerable person.
Yes, correct.
The vulnerable. So what makes people vulnerable is shame and trauma, right? And so what happens for an addict is they're using to help themselves feel better. The same thing with, how do people get into this? How do people get to a place where they don't feel good about themselves, and so they're
course.
willing to do stuff? So I don't know if that explained it well, but that's sort of where it is for me.
No, that does give shed light on the situation, and the reason why I say that is because before we started the show, we had a brief conversation. My initial gut reaction is I'm ready to fight this problem. You know what I mean? And so when you go to fight the problem, you find out, as you started educating me before we talked on the show on air, and you continue to do so, is that person that you're ready to fight was also traumatized.
Right. That's
and that's how they became the traumatizer,
Right.
so to speak.
Which is what I want to again transition into. We always have this idea, and I remember speaking to a school based on drugs years ago with my son in middle school. Excuse me, I'm about to have to sneeze. So
It's gone.
there you go.
Let
Excuse
that be
me.
a lesson to you, everyone at home.
And one of the things that I said to the assembly was, I need you all to know that the first person that will introduce you to drugs will not be the big, bad, scary person on the corner. It's going to be one of your friends. And I wanted to talk to you about the profile of, we have an idea like that's so far-fetched in our world, the same way mental illness was for us with our own kids. Like that, what? I didn't even understand it till the impact was extreme.
Right.
And I had to go look for answers. But the bottom line is, I want to talk to you about that profile and explaining to us how this whole thing, comes to be, with what the difference between what we think would be someone who would be trafficked and the trafficker versus what actually is the truth. So we're going to talk about that when we come back from this break.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Many children, and especially adolescents, experience mood swings as a normal part of growing up. But when these feelings persist and interfere with a child's ability to function in daily life, bipolar disorder could be the cause.
Symptoms can begin in early childhood, but usually emerge in adolescence or adulthood. Until recently, young people were rarely diagnosed with this disorder. Yet, up to 1/3 of the 3.4 million children and teens with depression in the United States may be experiencing the early onset of bipolar disorder, according to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry.
Many teens with bipolar disorder abuse alcohol and drugs to escape and should be evaluated for a mental health disorder. If an addiction develops, it is essential to treat both the mental health disorder and the substance abuse problem at the same time.
Bipolar disorder is treatable. Early identification, diagnosis, and treatment will help children and find their full potential. Children who exhibit signs of bipolar disorder should be evaluated by a mental health professional who specializes in treating children.
This message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
All right, we
we're
are back.
with Janet Craig, and we're talking about Wake Up, which is this water should do that for me.
I want to just say this one thing. I was walking through, I think, the airport in Atlanta, and I saw a sign that looked like a big, scary guy and he was holding the hand
And
of a child. And I was thinking to myself, okay, if someone saw that, they would know to watch out, that something looks odd about that. They weren't even the same. It was so many differences between
it was so ominous.
the thug, so to speak, and the child. Anybody would have been alarmed. But then I said, that how much more impactful would that have been if
he had
he'd been a nice guy in a business suit, and he looked, really nice, or even a woman looked like motherly,
clean cut,
and they were actually trafficking. So you wouldn't even think twice.
Right. And that's the thing. Traffickers, there are so many different people that make up trafficking, right? And we talk about what's the profile of a trafficker? What would be a person that would be willing to traffic? Well, a lot of times these are the people who've been trafficked. So you say you're either a pimp or a hoe in this world, right? And that person is going to either be being trafficked or trafficked. That's sometimes the situation, not every time the situation, obviously. Sometimes traffickers are people who struggle with mental health issues from their own traumas. You don't understand. When someone's willing to buy a child, when someone's willing to traffic a child, what's going on in that individual? And then what about people who are choosing to, some people want to be called sex workers, and they say they don't want to be called being trafficked. It gives them makes them feel powerful. And I say, okay, so when you think of a little baby who's being born, is that the dream? Like,
right.
Is this what we want in our society? And what makes us as people get to a place where this is happening in a multi-billion-dollar industry? And what you're saying is very true. Often traffickers are very attractive people and charismatic people who are struggling also. There's greed. There's so much money in it. It's a huge. So we look at things that have been brought down, like the Jeffrey Epsteins, right?
I almost said Glenn, but keep going. Literally. that blew me away as well. Like the willingness to actually be a facilitator, seeming.
Right, and
allegedly.
You think about I don't know that man, and I don't know what made him get to a place in his life, but they obviously are having relationship, and you're trying to please somebody sometimes, and it gets very complex. If we don't do the way that it's given to us, sex is this beautiful gift that we're supposed to take very careful care of. And men can either be protectors or predators, right? The majority of traffickers are men. The majority of buyers are men. The reason the majority of buyers are men is the way men are wired. And I know this is controversial in the day and age we're in now, where people are saying different things.
If it's
right?
the truth, I mean, this is the way we get to it.
Right.
So.
The truth is that it's the majority of people that are buying are men, and we're finding that people struggle and then they become predators rather than protectors. If we can give people the chance to be rescuers and we can give them the chance to be strong and go for it, that's helpful.
So in your research, I have to ask, talk to me right quick about a compassionate understanding. Is there a link that you found in talking to the trafficker? Talk to me about that, because to me, on the outside, the first thing I say is sex is free. Anybody who would do this to kids, for real, like what? Like the average person who's balanced has this it just seems like everything in me just goes, they're
it's
kids.
A visceral,
It's
revolting.
Visceral.
Yeah.
But when you begin to now, because of, again, I share my experience with mental illness. Now when I see these mentally ill humans who are broken, who've been crying out for a long time, and the next thing you know, you've got the school shooting. Yes, it's tragic for the children, but everybody was a victim. In a lot of cases, everyone was a victim. So what have you found? What's the compassion? Link us to that in those who traffic.
Well, if it's someone who's been trafficked, who's then trafficking, I feel like that person has been manipulated beyond, and they don't feel they have a choice. They feel trapped, and they either are going to be a trafficker or they're going to be trafficked, and that's not a choice. It's Sophie's choice.
Right. It's like a false set of circumstances that you can choose one or the other, as if that's the only choice you have.
Or if you're raised by someone who traffics and you're being taught that that's what you do. I mean, that's another thing, right? Think about when you're in society and you are being raised a certain way, what is okay? What is okay? So if you're raised as a pimp and your father was a pimp and your uncles are pimps and you're a pimp and you're being taught that you're either a pimp or a hoe in this world, and I'm going to be a pimp.
Right.
So then that young child becomes that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I saw, speaking of kind of that particular point, I forgot where I saw this, or I might have read this, that there was a town, I think, in Mexico, I thought, where they were saying, and I don't know how true this was, and I'm asking you, where just about, it was almost a hub of sex trafficking. They would bring girls and young children here from pretty much all over and just kind of get them set up to be trafficked into the United States.
Well, I think what people don't realize is trafficking is happening in every neighborhood in America. It's happening. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomics.
So it's not okay to just say it's coming from this is where. And so if you miss the real big bad wolf that's next door.
Well, and also think about people trafficking themselves. Okay, so you've got kids now who have smartphones, and they can get money if they put themselves out there. But it's a 12-year-old, and so they're doing this, and then they get their friend to do it, and then they make money from their friend if their friend goes on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this
Yeah.
is
Right.
and
It's actually becoming a culture
and
on
the
some level.
and the frontal cortex is not there yet
right.
to say
To reason. Right.
And the brain. You guys are talking about mental health. This really is. Are we going to be people that are going to be about helping others be mentally healthy? Or are we going to keep being proponents of material out there that looks like trafficking and looks like we're abusing people purposely? That's the media we're raising our kids in.
Well, that's such a great point to almost turn the corner, and the corner that I'm trying to turn, I still can't figure out how to do it in my mind right now. So we're glad you're here to help us. Is first of all, how do you fight against something that seems like the ball has gotten so big and pushed so far up the mountain that at any moment it'll start rolling down and there's nothing we can do to stop it? And the reason why I say that is because you brought up aspects such as greed. There's so much money involved, and nowadays, it used to be kids in school would say, I want to be a fireman when I grow up. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a nurse. Now I just want to have money. I just want to be rich.
No, they want to be a social media
or
star.
either way. You know what I mean? I just
Famous.
either want the attention and or the money. That's one aspect. The other aspect is we are also in a society that basically says there's nothing wrong with just randomly having sex.
Right. There's
With
no good and bad.
however many people you want to, or however you choose to do it your way, there's nothing wrong with
Right.
that. So it's almost like if I can't actually get someone to understand that this could be a thing that's not okay, how?
Well, ultimately, God's in charge. I'm not. Thank the Lord for that.
Right.
And then I think the other thing is each of us doing our part. And I think what we don't realize is you can do something. And I think the biggest thing we can do is be those loving, caring adults. One of the women who is a producer on this, she has an organization called Raising Hope, and it's for foster kids. And she said it takes one caring, compassionate adult to change the life of a child.
Yes.
And that's what it does. It takes one caring, compassionate adult to change the life of grown-up children.
Yeah.
So let's say you're in prison fellowship and you're in there with somebody who's trafficked people, and that person can be redeemed and use their life to help other people. We feel better when we help, when we serve. We got to
Absolutely.
turn these people around by being safe people. So how do you be safe for someone when you know that they've done something terrible? Is you level the playing field, because we've all done something terrible, and you say, I can meet you with my junk. You meet me with yours. I'll be a safe place. And there's a poor man's EMDR, which is where you rewiring of the brain. If you walk, you get both sides of the brain to talk to each other, and you tell a trusted individual your trauma, you can be healed from that.
Well, bravo. I asked
Yes,
how
for
could this
sure.
happen, and you explained it so beautifully.
And she did fully explain
Absolutely. That, you know what, we all need to take note and decide today that we're going to go out and help somebody else. The service to our fellow human beings is almost an element that's disappearing from society. Let's change that. We'll be right back.
it. It's been so long, my dancing skills.
All right,
are-
Marla. I see it building slowly, but let me see. Go. Is it getting into the rest of the body? She fell back asleep. Oh.
Wait a minute.
The music tells us it's poll time, and Marla's usually dancing to the happy music, but I don't know. Oh, there she goes. All right, Marla, what was our poll question last week with Marcus Miller?
Now my neck is sore. Hold on, I need a pole break. The question last week that we asked Marcus.
We didn't ask
well,
Marcus.
we asked Tony.
I think we did ask
We asked
Tony.
Tony. And the question was, what percentage of state prisoners have a recent history of a mental condition?
Mental health condition.
A mental health condition.
Yes.
I'm going to repeat that. What percentage of state prisoners have a recent history of a mental health condition? The answers that were possible: A, 11%, B, 17%, or C, 24%. Now, our sweetie did make a choice,
Yes, and I think
and I'm
he
going
got
to
it
say
correct.
he made the right choice.
Yes. So
But I'm not going to say until we get Janet to cash in on
true.
this.
Janet
What do you think,
has
Janet?
to weigh in.
I got to say 24%.
Okay, so
Ding,
Janet
ding,
and
ding.
Sweetie
Everybody got it correct.
are honestly a winning pair. So
Yes.
that's for sure. But now let's see if Janet can go on this walk by herself for the next question.
Uh-oh.
I need a drum roll. All right. Next week, what percentage of all global diseases are either mental, neurological, or substance abuse disorders? Good
Thank
job,
God, I
Dave.
almost ran out of breath. Jeez. All right, your options are 3%, 7%, or 10%. Again, the question, Marla.
What percentage of all global diseases are either mental, neurological, or substance abuse disorders? 38%, 7%.
No, 3%.
I'm sorry, 3, 7, or 10.
or 10%.
Well, I got to go with 10%.
All right,
Okay, well, we're glad that you went there, and we'll tell you that next week when you tune in, we'll find out where you went was successful.
All right.
there you go. Text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021. $1 today keeps the stigma away.
Please join us in our fight to erase the stigma. We need you.
We'll be right back. All right, we are back.
So-
and again, I really meant that sincerely. A lot of times it could seem like we're trying to stump our guests with some difficult question, but for us, we really just ask the questions that we feel everybody wants the answers to. And that seemed like a quandary where it felt like the answer would be hard to come by. And you said it so beautifully. It is difficult in this day and age to get someone to feel intuitively that if you are feeling bad, go out and help somebody else. It'll make you feel better. When it only seems like when you feel bad, you only want to be helped, if that makes any sense.
No, totally.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we as human beings, that's what I love about your program, your mental health. You're helping get rid of stigma. We need to get rid of stigma with everybody. We need to be able to meet people right where they're at, love them where they're at, and be able to listen again. We're so busy yelling at people with our own points of view. And all of us have a lot to learn. I mean, I'm giving my opinion. I am no expert, right? Each of
You're
us
human.
is just, I'm human.
And I can
and
share
a
my
mess, like everybody
literally.
else.
One of the things I used to say on my original social media page was, I'm not here to give you advice. I'm only here to share my experience. And if my experience can help you become or find a nugget that will make you better for you, I don't want you to be me. God made one me, and I promise I can be a mess. So I promise. So I'm like, so for me, that's the thing. And I think that to piggyback right quick on Dave and to cover your point as well, and I have to look at our audience and say this, we have really allowed ourselves to become desensitized with social media, and it has literally numbed and rounded out the actual human package that God gifted us with. We are all born with compassion and empathy, and service feels better. And if you don't believe me, everyone stops for a wounded animal to help. I've helped people in a couple of car accidents that were near my home. And I told Dave, when the car got T-boned and you saw the smoke, and I'm like, gotta get this lady out of this car before it catches on fire. There wasn't one bit as I sprinted through the park to help save this lady that said to me, well, hold on, before I take you out of the car, who did you vote for?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you, come on, are you blue? Stop. That's natural. And we have allowed ourselves to be desensitized. And I think that if we can wake up, what? Did I just bring that together? If we can wake up seriously, I think that we'll just, there's enough love in this world where we can actually promote healing, but we have to come outside of ourselves.
Indeed. Before we get out of here, tell us
Where
you are in this process with this movie, what's about to happen, what's on the horizon, all the good things.
What has already happened?
Wake up.
Yes. Well, we are really excited because Delta Airlines has partnered with us. They have this big advocacy to fight trafficking, and we are going to be on domestic flights. Our movie, Wake Up, will be on
love
domestic
it.
flights April through December of this year, 2023. And we're also going to Cannes to the market, and we are not able to share any of the
Okay.
other information
There
at
you
this
go.
point, but we're excited to see this rolling out.
That
So
is
what
exciting.
Janet just told you is book your flights. Fly
Well, you know what?
somewhere in the United
it just
States
so
of America.
happens that Marla and I fly Delta
And we'll
almost
be headed to
exclusively.
Florida at some point in April, and I'm going to have to tell the flight attendants, the gate person or whoever you talk to block my seats because I need to be able to stretch out and watch.
Or
Wake Up.
just put it on everyone's screen.
That's right.
you go.
We need to hand it out. Everybody watch Wake Up, Wake Up, Wake Up, Wake Up. That's it.
Janet, thank you so much. Such a heavy topic, but the beauty in this
Yes.
in this whole thing was that you were such a ray of light and hope, not just for what you would traditionally think the victims are, but understanding that everyone in this entire scenario is a victim of some sort. And if we are going to really be people who love our fellow man, we have to love everybody involved and love them out of it versus criticize, beat them up,
And create more
stigmatize,
trauma
or
and more
shame
shame.
them into doing something different, because that just makes the problem worse.
Yeah. Helping people forgive each other and to forgive anybody who's hurt you, I think, is one of the key things for our own freedom and for the freedom of other people.
And I would say that's a perfect closing message, but is there something that you want to close with? Because we're unfortunately out of time.
And I just think, that's been a big thing for me, is to be able to love everyone and meet them right where they are. I think I would love if everybody could do that right now. If we could just meet people where they are and love them well by God's grace, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what? Like Janet said, if you decide today, just one act of kindness, help serve somebody else, help somebody else, over time, the accumulation of those types of behaviors will change the world.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be watching.
It's great to be here with you
Indeed.
guys.
Guess what? Next week, pause for Patrick. Pause as in puppy paws. So for Patrick. So this is going to be a great show.
Is this the puppy sound?
Again, thank you to Janet Craig and the movie Wake Up. We can't wait. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.